Hello, and here we are already in the last few weeks of 2018. Welcome to another installment of Planet X in View, where we document extraordinary events and situations that are happening because of the arrival, the return of the Planet X Nibiru Nemesis system. I've given a general outline of all that in the video on this channel titled About Planet X Part 1. So what are we seeing here? The first thing I want to address is the date. The footage we're looking at is already more than 5 months in the past. Isn't this out of date now and steadily becoming more and more irrelevant? The crucial point to understand is that events in our solar system that pertain to the approach and the presence of the Planet X system are fully relevant today, even though such events may be from last year or even a few years back. The time scale of the orbit of the Nemesis system renders a situation that the block of about 6 or 7 years in the culmination of its passing through our area does indeed comprise the last moments of its approach and passing and the apocalyptic moment of its interaction with our Earth. Turning now to the webcam footage, we have an evening view of Acapulco Marina, Mexico, on the date of June 4th, 2018. The point of our interest is pretty much due west. One immediate curious detail is this object. The first logical question to ask, is this the sun that we're seeing here? And we find that the precise time of sunset for this date and location is 10 past 8. In the video footage, what we're seeing right now is occurring at 12 past 8. Now the dense cloud cover blocks our view of the actual sunset, which we would have seen in about this position, traveling down below the horizon in a complete sunset at 10 past 8. So, with the sun having descended below the evening horizon, how do we explain this? It's not the sun, it's not the moon, it's not some kind of glare from a floodlight or spotlight, and it's not a twilight glow left over from the sunset. It's none of those, so what is it? It is a physical planetary body located somewhere out within our inner solar system, and from everything we understand, the bright light that it is giving off is actually still from our sun. This object out there is reacting to the sun's light and also reflecting, similar in principle to the way the moon shines. One other important factor to bear in mind is that these planetary objects and associated debris that belong to the Nemesis system involve also a tremendous amount of extraneous trailing clouds of dust, plasma, rocks, and even immense cloud bodies of hydrocarbon-based materials and other aspects that are actually unknown at this stage. But it needs to be understood that these trailing fields of the Nemesis system are vast in size, vast enough that, for example, a cloud of red oxide dust that would be attached and dragged along by one of the planets in this system is so large that when the Earth passes through that cloud, it will envelop the entire Earth, and we'll have this red oxide dust permeating the skies and settling on the land, lakes, rivers, and seas all around the world. But for the moment, the main point I'd like to register is that in many cases, the radiant bright area, such as we see in this footage, is not specifically the planetary body, but the clouds associated with it that are reflecting the light. To clarify further, in many instances, you're able to see the bright patch, but it's not properly round like a planetary body. It will be in various shapes, teardrop or oval or stretched out, and sometimes round, while at the same time, in many instances, you can make out and see the darker, round body adjacent to the bright field of light. Now, it's understandable that a lot of people may have serious doubts about what I just suggested there. I refer to those couple places where I indicated that a planetary object may be evident there. And yes, from this one example alone, a person would be justified in expressing even cynicism, saying, "You're a nut. You're looking at puffs of cloud and making them out to be planets." And you know, I totally agree that that level of erroneous conclusion is laughable. And so, back to what I'm explaining here, I would say to the well-meaning cynic, hold your horses, butterfly, hold your horses. Because while that type of mistake would be absurd and deserves to be exposed as such, my commentary there is not based on whimsical conjecture, pet theories, and speculation. It is based on the result of about 3 years of specific observation on this particular aspect. Of tremendous additional value in finding answers in this study is a wealth of photographic and video evidence. In other words, we can see it. This Planet X Nemesis system is back, and the situations where we can see various aspects of it are becoming more and more frequent and pronounced. So we're seeing various manifestations, whether it be the planetary members, plasma clouds, or debris fields somehow attached to these bodies, being dragged and trailing out in space. Moreover, we are often getting dark areas, which are the shadows or silhouettes cast by these planetary bodies. Now, in the commentary thus far, I've been referring to, quote, these planetary bodies, or these planets. Now, for someone who may not know this subject, this may be a bit confusing, with the person wondering, what do you mean, these planets? What planets are you talking about? So I'll interject a side note here for those who may have found this video but are not familiar with the various aspects of the Planet X Nemesis Nibiru situation. It is understood that the Planet X system comprises 7 planets orbiting a central star that fits under the definition of a red dwarf type of celestial body, a little larger than Jupiter. Regarding the 7 planets that have been mentioned, in terms of size, 4 of the planets described in this information are as big as the Earth, and the other 3 would be comparable in size to Mars. This description and the data is from the announcements made by a team of astronomers and the observatory they were affiliated with in Chile back in February of 2017 regarding the discovery of a planetary system which has been named TRAPPIST-1, and furthermore taken on board by NASA Space Agency, who has also made disclosure and announcements leaked to the public under the guise of the TRAPPIST-1 discovery. In the video on this channel titled About Planet X Part 1, I give a general overview of the whole TRAPPIST-1 story and the reasons why this disclosure from NASA and the official space agency establishment is actually a covert means of giving to the public a bulk of the information held about the Nemesis system. And now, having said that, we've opened a whole can of worms where there can begin to be all kinds of debates and opinions of this means that, and that means this, and this won't be that. And I'm not going into those debates here. The foundation idea that we can lean back on is simply what this video shows, along with others like it, in which we see that there is something extraordinary going on. Let's return now to the discussion we were having before I got sidetracked explaining about these planets. So instead of a bright orb shining in the sky or on the horizon, we have a dark area, spherical in shape. And in a lot of instances, the utterly monstrous size of these things is just startling and simply unbelievable. And I'd like to affirm that apart from the indication arrows that I've put in, these pictures are entirely untouched, unaltered. Now, under normal circumstances, this line of discussion would be simply ridiculous. To see a round shape up amidst the clouds, or a uniquely shaded area up in the sky, and to be considering whether or not it's a planetary body, well, that's just silly. But hold on a minute. We need to qualify that statement. Under normal, regular circumstances, it's just silly. However, we actually are living in a time where these normal and regular circumstances that have held constant for centuries have been temporarily superseded by this grand event of the approach and the passing of the Planet X system. At this stage, I end up more or less repeating what I've just said because I want it clearly stated that this line of discussion, this observation, upon first introduction, would strike most people as being amusingly wacky, or as being strictly in the domain of tin-foil hat-wearing conspiracy nuts. And again, under normal and regular circumstances, a judgment like that may be applicable. In fact, through the first year and a half or two of my research and observations, I began to notice these spherical images, and for a long while, I totally dismissed such things as being mere coincidence, or one way or another, as being nothing of importance. There's no way I was going to even go there, as far as seeing a spherical-shaped cloud or dark area and leaping to the assumption that that might be one of those planets. However, through the accumulation of data and continued observations of the sky, it gradually became profoundly evident that these sightings are of tremendous value in this study. The point of our interest at the start of this documentary was an event on the date of June 4th, 2018. And now another event is from the next day, that's the 5th of June. We've got an evening view of Mexico City, Santa Fe District, and we're facing east, or more precisely, northeast. The time here right now is 1849, or about 10 to 7 p.m. By noticing the shadows from the tall buildings, we can ascertain where the sun is, which is right where it's supposed to be, in the west sky behind us. Advancing forward about 35 minutes, we've got this bright object that at this stage looks like it could be nothing more than an illuminated cloud. However, over a time span of about 45 minutes, we find that it is much more significant than that. And we'll come back in a moment to finish our observations on this area. We now see that a separate additional group of illuminations has come into view above it. Let's back up a couple minutes and track the position and progress of this. Note also that the movement of the top group is different and independent from the group under it, demonstrating separate sources or objects radiating the light. In my experience, it can be difficult, if not impossible, to get your mind to grasp just how significant this is. To refine it down to a blunt description, we have here an illuminated body that is definitely not any of the 9 regular planets we think of as part of the solar system, and it's not the sun nor the moon. It's not a lens flare, so what is it? And yes, admittedly, we seem to keep going around in circles, raising this same formula and question. And the answer? We are seeing a component of the Planet X system. As this object at the top of the screen moves out of range, we return to the bright area that was noted earlier. And again, this looks like it could be nothing more than the sun's light reflecting off the clouds. And if that was the case, then there would be nothing of significance here in relation to our study. But upon further observation, details emerge that establish that once again we have an extraordinary event here. Considering the regular news flow across television, radio, and newspapers, this should be a headline event. It is not at all normal or regular to have an illuminated body like that shining in the evening eastern sky. I'd like to render a summary now of the main points raised in this discussion. We started with an event at Acapulco Marina, in which we have this strongly illuminated object, while at the same time the sun has already gone down below the horizon. We have to get it through to our realization that this is not a maybe or might be or probably situation. It is a definite, conclusive fact that right in front of our eyes is an extraordinary, anomalous object in our solar system. Next, we considered a few examples of the spherical shapes that are oftentimes entirely dark and not reflecting any illumination at all. And in a lot of cases, these are extraordinarily huge. The remaining event that we looked at in this video is seen from Mexico City, June 5th. Now, do we realize how incredible and momentous this is? This event that's going on in front of our eyes here in this video footage greatly qualifies under the label of important. It's to do with this paramount question that hangs over our heads today, and that is Planet X, Nibiru, Nemesis, Wormwood, this whole Nibiru story, is it real or is it just a bunch of internet hobby hype? And the fact is, it is real. And those who disagree with that, well, they simply haven't found out yet. I have to add one more category to that, and that is there are those who disagree and they criticize and debunk this Planet X thing, and they actually know full well that it's real, and they're part of the machinery that is diligently trying to keep the general public in the dark. Doesn't that sound so much like paranoid conspiracy theorist kind of stuff? But it's not. That's merely the actual state of things, and it can be proven. And this situation will have an impact on all of our lives, an impact on the whole Earth. In a number of ways, it is already having an impact on the lives of many people with regard to various aspects of the normal functions of the Earth environment, wavering and wobbling more and more to extremes. If you have a little season where it's extremely hot or extremely cold or a bit of major flooding and so on, these kind of things can totally rearrange your life. Anyway, consider this example. Let's say you know that 2 plus 2 is 4. And then you get some person who comes in, you tell him that, and he's got a major question mark on his face, and then begins to explain reasons why that's probably not so. So now, just because this person doesn't grasp that 2 plus 2 equals 4, are you going to now re-question your knowledge and go back to the drawing board and also doubt that simple fact? And hopefully the answer is no. You know the answer there, and you are right. It's just a fact of life that people who try and tell you otherwise, well, you're right, and they're wrong. And that's the way it is about this other aspect of our solar system. That dialogue I've just gone through illustrates the point I said earlier, that this scene in front of us here is important. And the way that works is one direct route toward getting to the bottom of this Planet X thing and realizing whether it's a fairy tale or real is if there is solid, clear, unmistakable evidence, proof, and this in front of us comes into that category. The following details that I want to reassemble here to bring this all to a conclusion are repetitive of things we've already covered, so if you could please bear with that, I would just be delighted. One last time, we'll assemble the basic factors in play here, and then it will be left to our mind to grasp the verdict or not. The time of what is in our view right now is evening, and at 8:15, it's actually about 3 minutes past where the sun went down below the horizon. The direction or location of the sunset was behind us in the west, and we're looking east-northeast. And yet, in spite of these factors, we've got this.